Good morning, everyone. Our earlier class was on the basic concepts of Marxism, and in this second class on Marxism, we will be going through the greatest Marxist thinkers, and probably we have many such. In today's class, Antonio Gramsci from Italy, we have chosen, and we are going to discuss some of the fundamental ideas that Gramsci formulated in his lifetime. And the first important note that we are going to make, that how did Gramsci he came into contact with the analysis of the socialist theory. Gramsci was born in Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy, and Gramsci's early life was characterized by poverty, and for the most of his life, he suffered poor health. So, what you ultimately get about Gramsci, he was a man from Italy, and his early life was characterized by poverty. And what about the health? He was having a poor health, and during the fascist Italy, Gramsci went through long imprisonment, and during this long imprisonment, Gramsci experienced or suffered very poor health. So, what do you get? You get the three different dimensions of Gramsci's early life. He was a man from Italy. He was a man having very poor health, and his life was characterized by poverty. And when he was going through prison term in Italy, in fascist Italy, he was having a more weaker version of the health. Then, what about the other side of his life? Gramsci's early years in Sardinia introduced him to the socialist politics. So, Gramsci came into socialist politics early in his life, and it was in Sardinia. And what influenced him most, it was the writing of many such prominent Italian thinkers like Salvini and Croce and Prezzolini. So these were the prominent thinkers, socialist thinkers of his time, that influenced Gramsci's early political ideology. Gramsci started his career in political thinking early in Sardinia, and his mindset was completely shattered, in fact, reconstructed, resettled by the greatest thinkers of Italy, as we have mentioned here in this page. And what is next? Gramsci dedicated much of his time after 1915 to journalism, and becoming one of the most effective public voices of Italian Socialist Party. So this is going to be one crucial aspect of Gramsci's life. Okay, Gramsci during 1915 he became a dedicated journalist, and not only that, he is a public voices. He is a public voices of the Italian Socialist Party, became the most effective voice of his time. This is how Gramsci gradually was drawn into active politics. He was basically actively participating in politics during 1915 to 1921. So, we would like to have a very quick remembrance of Gramsci. Gramsci was born in Italy, in Sardinia. His early life was characterized by poverty, and he was having a very poor health. This poor health got worsened during his fascist imprisonment. This is the one aspect of his life. Second, during 1915, Gramsci became an influential journalist in Italy, and his voice became so he became so voicey for us during 1950. So from 1915 to 1921, Gramsci participated in the active politics of Italy. Then the bulk of Gramsci's intellectual output is contained in his prison notebooks. So what I say, that if someone is planning to know Antonio Gramsci, if someone is wishing to share some of the fundamental socialistic ideas of Gramsci, then all fundamental ideas are recorded in his prison notebooks. Because as we mentioned earlier, Mr. Gramsci, he had gone through long term imprisonment in the fascist Italy. So what do you get in these prison notes? Prison notes is a large compendium of essays, commentaries, and letters. So it's a kind of a amalgamations of essays, commentaries, and letters, where you generally get the fundamental ideas of Gramsci and his socialistic views. So the first key thought of Gramsci as a socialist thinker, it is this writing that reveal Gramsci's distinctive contribution to the socialist theory and left analysis, even though they are colored by a certain cryptic style designed to maneuver around issues sensitive to prison censors. So what do you say? Okay, if you are going to make a closer observation of the prison notebooks of Gramsci, then you get the two different dimensions. One is Gramsci has formulated a kind of a socialist theory, social theory, number one. And number two, he has parallelly continued a kind of a analysis of the left, that is called left analysis. So during his long prison term in Italy, Gramsci had done two things simultaneously. One, he has formulated social theory. Another, he has provided the analysis of the left. But while doing all this, Mr. Gramsci, he was pretty much aware regarding the censorship of the prison. So you might be lost in thought or in doubt that what are the what are the censorship in prison, meaning in prison you have a moderate censorship. In prison you have a moderate freedom, meaning you in prison you cannot say everything, in prison you cannot write everything. So because you have a limited access to your liberty and freedom. So Mr. Antonio Gramsci, he knew that he was in prison, okay, and in the prison he was having very limited access to liberty, and with this limited access to liberty he need to say whatever he plans. So during this prison term, okay, Gramsci was doing two things simultaneously. One, he was formulating the social theory. Another, he was offering a commentary on the left, that we call left analysis. Okay, the first important key concept of Gramsci that Gramsci pointed out deficiency in the revolutionary character of the working class. Okay, this is going to be the fundamental understanding of Antonio Gramsci. Okay, what Mr. Gramsci was doing in prison. In prison, Gramsci was trying to reveal the character of the working class and the character of the ruling class. Okay, what is something that has defined the working class as a working class, and what is something that has upheld the ruling class as a ruling class? Okay, in that case Mr. Antonio Gramsci, he was probably remembering the famous Marxist dictum: if the rulers are the rulers, then they have their ruling ideas. If the rulers are rulers, then they are the people with ruling idea. This may sound pretty difficult. Suppose one man in your area, he has some 4 rice mill and he is the richest man in your village. If you say, then I will say that he is not only rich in money. Before she had established the 4 different rice mills, probably he is rich in his idea. It is idea that is rich, that has made him rich. Okay. In the very similar way, if the rulers are rulers, if the rulers are ruler and they are superior, then the superior ruler not only superior as a ruler, but also their ideas are also superior in regard to the working class. Okay. So what I say, the ideas of the ruling class are always the ruling ideas. If the rulers are rulers, then they occupy the superiority of the thinking with the idea with which they rule. Then if someone say that I belong to the, look at the picture, if someone is indicating that I belong to the top of this company, suppose I am a multinational, I am a basically owner of a multinational company, I belong to the top. If I belong to the top, because if I belong to this top, okay, then I have the idea to reach there. Okay, it is the idea. Karl Marx only indicated that the rulers are rulers with their ruling ideas. They know how to make themselves, put themselves in a superior condition. So it is idea with which the rulers are superior. In contradiction to this, look at the nature of the working class. Okay, the working class is lacking the revolutionary character. What is the revolutionary character? Okay, suppose some 300 workers, they regularly work in a brick making company. Okay, something 300 laborers, they work in a brick making company. What happened there? Okay, they never think of even changing their profession. Okay, generation after generation they continue the same profession. Okay, because their idea, a slave is a slave because he has such kind of an inferior idea to remain a slave, because he is lacking that revolutionary character. Okay, so in the prison, and after observing the proper censorship in the prison, Mr. Gramsci, he was making a perfect analysis of the character of the ruling class and of the character of the working class. Ruling class are with the better ideas, are with the ruling ideas. They know how to exploit the labors of the others, whereas the working class, they lack that kind of intellectual sparking. The working class, they do not have that kind of a revolutionary nature, meaning they do not have any idea to change their present condition. So this is something what is lacking in the ruling class. This is something that is lacking in the working class, and this is something with which the rulers are the best. The rulers are the superiors because they have their revolutionary ruling ideas. They know how to change and how to make their situation tight. Okay. Then come to the Gramsci's basic idea of hegemony. So while reassessing while reassessing the character of the working class, Gramsci ultimately brought the idea of hegemony. What Gramsci says? According to Gramsci, the notion of hegemony was developed, okay, simply on the basis of the deficiency. Okay, if you say why the working class remains as a working class, and why the rulers they prosper as a ruler, because it's a something that is efficiency and deficiency. Rulers are efficient with their revolutionary idea, and whereas the working class are deficient. They are lacking. What is the deficiency in them? Once again, as I mentioned earlier, the working class is lacking revolutionary character, and that's why what they generally do. So the notion of hegemony in particular was developed by Gramsci as a way to account for a deficiency. So while Mr. Gramsci was counting the deficiency of the working class, that the working class is fundamentally wanting something, lacking something. The revolutionary character is lacking among the workers, and that's why what happens there, as well as to amend the economic determinism that has plagued Marxist analysis. Okay, so what happens here? The working class remains working class because they lack revolutionary character, because they accept the present economic activity from the point of view of a determinism, meaning if they are workers, meaning it is their destiny that has decided it. Okay, then let's go with the hegemony. In Gramsci's formulation, hegemony accounts for how domination is exercised apart from coercion and force. Okay, this is probably the single sentence definition of hegemony. Very simply, look at the picture below. One man is ruling many. How does it possible, or how is it possible? Okay, hegemony begins when the powerful starts exercising its power over the powerless. Okay, when the powerful exercises its power over the powerless, there begins the proper exercise of hegemony. For example, I would like to give you a series of examples. Suppose Chinese technology is superior. Okay, Chinese technology is superior, and that's why whichever country you visit, you get their Chinese technological products. So Chinese technology is superior, and that's why this superior Chinese technology is ruling every country. So that is also what I say, that the role of China in technology is having that kind of a hegemonic control. Suppose you visit to a shopping mall or a big bazaar. Even in the shopping mall and the big bazaar, you can access all types of food. That is I am talking about the food culture. So in terms of the food culture, Italy comes first. So Italian food culture is superior. Then whichever shopping mall or restaurant you visit, okay, you see the domination or the hegemonic control of the superior food culture of Italy. And once again, what I say, that is the mode of operation of the English medium school. Okay, in probably American model is the best model. So this best American model of English medium school is rampant throughout the universe. And once again, if you say that the French people are pretty much refined in their taste of dress and fashion, so whichever country you visit, you see that the French dress and style and fashion dominates comparatively the lesser inferior dress culture. So what happens here, when you say hegemony, then hegemony and hegemonic control occurs at various level. It is not only that only powerful rules the powerless, but also it is the powerful that control the powerless. It is the superior that control the inferior. Superior Chinese technology is dominating the inferior technology of the rest of the universe. Superior food culture of Italy is ruling the inferior food culture of the rest of the world. Superior dress culture of France is ruling the inferior dress culture of the rest of the world. This is how hegemony takes its operation. Then what I say, the second point, the dominated classes or groups have their own reason for accepting the idea of a ruling class. Okay, this is something what I say. In hegemony, how does hegemony become possible? Ruler has his own reason to justify. If you simply see a rice mill in your locality, then the owner of the rice mill has his own reason that my father had one rice mill, I have four rice mills. So he has his own reason to rule, to dominate. And the working class, they have their own reason to be dominated. So this is how hegemonic control survives. Okay, ruler justifies with the superior ideas of domination, and the working class, they justify that they are born to remain slave. They are born to be dominated by the powerful. This is how hegemonic control becomes possible. Just read with me. The dominated classes or groups have their own reason. So if a group is dominated, okay, if they are accepting the domination, there is a reason behind this. Such reasons are the ground for the spontaneous consent given to the dominant ideology. So what happens here? Suppose you work in a local rice mill, and you know that your daily wages should be 300 rupee, but the rice mill is providing you 175 rupee. Okay, so you know this, and you are pretty angry with this. But what happens there? Okay, today's afternoon you make a promise that probably they are underpaying me. I should have received 300 rupee amount from them. They are paying me 175 rupee a day. So they are underpaying me. They are exploiting my labor. You make a promise today. But what happens there? Next morning, while brushing your tooth, you unconsciously march towards the rice mill. So this is where Gramsci further even explores the psyche of the working class. That the rulers, not only the rulers are rulers with their powerful ruling idea, the rulers gradually inject this ruling idea in the mind of the working class. So this is how the ideological level of the workers is resettled, meaning the workers, they remain with their strong ideology that probably though they are underpaid, next day he needs to visit to the company, otherwise they will not be, otherwise they will die in starving or starvation. So what happens there? The rulers, they do two things. The ruler, they keep their position as a ruler with their superior idea. So they keep their position. This is the one aspect. And the second aspect is they not only keep their position with the superior idea, but also they make a complete ideological brainwashing of the workers. Meaning, Okay, the rulers, they do two things. They keep their position intact with their ruling idea, which is superior, and they keep the slave, the working class, as a working class simply by resettling their ideology. So these are the two things that the ruling class they generally do, and this is how hegemony becomes possible. This is how hegemonic control operates itself. Then come to the second thing. You can ask, sir, is hegemony fixed or stable? Is it unchangeable? Sir, is it Chinese technology? Is it that the Chinese technology will be dominating the universe forever? Okay. Hegemonic control is not stable. Hegemonic control is not fixed. Okay, it changes. Why? Because it is liable to break down. Hegemony is unstable because it is liable to break down. Then the question rises. In fact, in this section, we are talking about the nature of the hegemony, whether hegemony is stable, fixed, or unchangeable. Then the first important claim that we have ever made, that the hegemony is not stable. Hegemonic control is not fixed. Hegemonic operation is not unchangeable because it is liable to break down. Sir, when will hegemonic control will break down? Okay, there is a reason. When the subordinated group develops alternative way of seeing the world. Okay, hegemony will survive. Hegemony will survive as long as the working class is lacking revolutionary character. Hegemony will survive as long as the workers believe in determinism. Suppose I think that I am a daily worker because my life is destined to be a daily worker. If I believe in this kind of determinism, then I will not be able to break that hegemony. Okay. If someone says that, oh, I am a worker, we cannot change our fortune. Meaning, if people are lacking, if the working class is lacking revolutionary character, then hegemony will never be broken down. If the working class, they believe in determinism, then the hegemonic control cannot be challenged. Then when can hegemony be broken? When is hegemonic control is liable to break down or liable to be broken down? You can break down the hegemonic control when the working class, the subordinate class, the dominated class, the wage class, they start seeing the world with an alternative perspective. When I see that if Mr. Ratan Tata is a Ratan Tata and I am a worker in his company, I can also have my own company. The moment the working class will start seeing the universe with the alternative viewpoint, this is the moment a challenge will be given to the hegemonic control. So this slide is completely dedicated to the analysis of the fact that, sir, is hegemony unchangeable? Is hegemony stable? Is hegemony fixed? Then the answer is hegemony is not fixed. Hegemonic control is not unchangeable, meaning changeable. Hegemonic control can be changed. Then, sir, how? Hegemonic control can be changed if the working class change their viewpoint of seeing the universe. If the working class, they think of an alternative way of seeing the universe, judging the universe. That if Ratan Tata is the owner of the Tata company, meaning if he is the ruling class, we are the working class, meaning I have the every reason to use the natural resources as Mr. Ratan Tata Ratan Tata is doing. So upon nature I have the equal right. When the wage class, slave class, working class, they will have alternative viewpoint of the universe, then hegemony can be changed. Then what is the different argument? When can we not change hegemonic control? We cannot change hegemonic control if we are lacking revolutionary character in us. Okay, if we do not have the urge for change in us, then we cannot change hegemonic operation. Okay, there is a second argument that we cannot change hegemonic control if we believe in determinism, that I am a daily wager because I am destined to be a wager. So if someone believes in determinism, then hegemony cannot be broken. If someone is lacking the revolutionary character, then hegemony cannot be broken. Then wherefore the hegemony can be broken? Hegemony can be broken when the working class, they start seeing the universe with the alternative perspective. When they start seeing the universe that the world belongs to me as much as it belongs to Ratan Tata. Okay, so I have the equal right to the natural resources as Mr. Ratan Tata has to the nature. So with the alternative perspective, there begins the basically possibility where we can change the hegemonic operation. Then the key to this kind of transformation, okay, if we want to unsettle the hegemony, then what are we to do? The key to this kind of transformation consists thus of cultural and political work in society. Okay, if you are planning to, if you are someone who belong to the working class, if you are someone who is thinking of unsettling the hegemonic control, changing the hegemonic control, then you need to change the cultural work in a society and the political work in a society. Then you can change the hegemonic operation. How is it possible? This is precisely what Gramsci meant by the war of position. War of position means, okay, we have the same nature. Mr. Ratan Tata is also fighting to get his control over the natural resources. I am a daily wage worker. I am also fighting for the same resource where I want to establish my control. Okay, this is something what Gramsci said, that war of position. Gramsci has used another word as well, that to be distinguished from the war of maneuver. By war of maneuver, we mean the revolutionary takeover in a society where domination is not complemented by the hegemonic sway over society at large. So Gramsci's two different words, war of position and war of maneuver. War of position means the long patient work in a civil society oriented to combating the established hegemony. So okay, when people are fighting to establish his own control over the natural resources, that is called war of position. But what happens here? Suppose you live some 40 years and you struggle some 20 years to get your authority upon the natural resources. Okay, this kind of endeavor will be called, okay, war of position. Something Mukesh Ambani's son, okay, he does not toil at all, but overnight he becomes the owner of a multinational company. This is called war of maneuver. He does not struggle, but he became powerful and superior overnight. So we are talking about that when hegemonic control can be changed. Hegemonic control can be changed through transformation, and this transformation occurs at social level and at the political level, that is at the cultural level and at the political level. Okay, when we talk about transformation at social level and at the political level and at the cultural level, okay, we understand two different mode of operation. One is war of position, where individuals struggle with patient to establish his authority on nature, and probably there is another basically way, that is called war of maneuver, where you do not do anything but still you get your complete control over nature. There are two ways of establishing your authority upon the natural resources: war of position and war of maneuver. The first one, what you achieve with struggle, with a revolutionary endeavor, and second thing, that you simply manipulate something and you achieve something. By manipulating you achieve something. Then come to the basically very idea, how does hegemony go through unsettling period, মানে how hegemony can be changed. It can be changed through transformation at cultural level, at political level, at the social level. Okay, how can this transformation possible? It was such an orientation towards the question of culture, consciousness, and active agency. Look at this. So if you want to experience a change at cultural level, at political level, at social level, then you need to orient the mind of the masses. Okay, their questions towards culture, their questions towards consciousness, and their active agency. Okay, and this can be done by the intellectuals. So Gramsci focused on the roles of the intellectuals as well. Okay, if you want to break the hegemony, then you need to look for transformation at cultural level, social level, political level. Okay, how can you bring transformation at these three levels? By orienting the mind of the masses. Okay, at the cultural level, at the consciousness level, and at the active agency level. Then who can orient? Just look at the basically journey, look at the monsoon journey of the penguin birds. Okay, one leader starts the journey and rest of the people follow. So this is something. There is the first one who is leading the group. He is undoubtedly the intellectual fellow. Okay, what happens here in a Marxist society? It is the role of the intellectual which is very significant. Okay, an intellectual people, an intelligent fellow, he starts the orientation. He starts the orientation of the masses at the cultural level, at the consciousness level, and at the active agency level. Okay, and Gramsci, he saw that intellectuals are crucial in articulating and disseminating the outlooks. Okay, for example, I would like to say, suppose in West Bengal, the people of Kurmali language, they are fighting that probably Kurmali language should also officially be given the prestige and the honor. Okay, look, there are some 1,000 people who speak Kurmali language. Are they looking for a PhD? Are they looking for a PhD or educated fellow so that their language movement can be headed? No, they are not looking for such kind of a highly intellectual fellow. What happens there? they form an organic intellectual, meaning if there are thousand of Kurmali speaking people in West Bengal, among the thousand people, a natural leader with a natural leader with the power of orienting the mass from the cultural perspective, from the consciousness level, and from the active agency level, he naturally emerges. So among these thousand people, one natural leader automatically comes out, who guide the culture, who guide the consciousness, who guide the agency. Okay, this is something. This is where Mr. Gramsci says that hegemony can be broken, hegemony can be challenged. Okay, hegemony can be challenged, can be broken through transformation. Transformation at the cultural level, at the political level, and at the social level. Okay, how can you bring transformation? You can bring the transformation, okay, when you can orient the mind of the working class. Then there rises the question, who can orient the mind of the working class? Suppose in a multinational company there work some 4 lakh people. Among the 4 lakh people, okay, one or two natural leader will emerge, who will lead the consciousness, culture, and active agency level. Okay, transformation at cultural level is possible when there emerges a natural leader. The natural leader will guide the consciousness of the mass. Okay, such kind of emergence of the natural leader from the mass is something that Mr. Gramsci said that organic intellectuals. Okay, the participation of the organic intellectual, okay, makes the process of orientation possible. Orientation at these 3 level, cultural, conscious, and active agency level, brings the transformation. Then transformation is seen at the political level, at the cultural level, at the social level. So there are 3 different things. The first one is, I just repeat, can hegemony be broken? Can hegemony be challenged? The answer is, hegemony can be challenged, hegemony can be broken. The question is, how? Hegemony can be broken and hegemony can be challenged through the process of transformation. Then you can question, sir, transformation at what level? Transformation at cultural level, transformation at political level, transformation at society level. These are the 3 things. Sir, who will bring the transformation? Organic intellectuals will bring the transformation. Sir, how the organic intellectual will bring the transformation? Who are the organic intellectual? Or by organic intellectual, we mean the natural leader who emerge from the mass of the working class. Suppose in Kolkata, in Hind Motor, there are some 5,000 workers. Among the 5,000 workers, 2 or 3 natural leader or naturally emerge, and they guide and rule the consciousness and the culture and the active agency level of the rest of the working class. So these 3 or 4 leader, they can be called organic intellectual. Organic intellectual, they will orient what? They will orient the culture of the mass, consciousness of the mass, active agency of the mass. When organic intellectual will orient the 3 things, okay, through this orientation, transformation will take place. Transformation will take place at the cultural level, at the political level, and at the social level. Okay, look at the role of the organic intellectual. For the working class, an intellectual who is fulfilled that role was not confined in Gramsci's thought, that is, stratum of educated or revolutionary elite. Okay, by organic intellectual, Gramsci does not say that organic intellectual must be a revolutionary elite or educated fellow. Okay, organic intellectual does not comprise of educated fellow or revolutionary elite. Someone need not to be an MPhil scholar or PhD fellow to become a leader. Okay, suppose in West Bengal, okay, some uh, 10,000 workers, are having a kind of a movement. Okay, if they have that kind of a movement, they will not go to look for a highly educated fellow that will lead their movement. Okay, they will not look for, they will not borrow a leader from anywhere. Rather, what will happen, among the 10,000 there will emerge the natural leadership. By natural leadership means the people with comparatively better intelligence. The people with comparatively better intelligence. So when we understand organic intellectuals, we mean, suppose in West Bengal some 10,000 workers, they are revolting for jute industry. They are revolting for jute industry because most of the jute mills are locked. So if 10,000 people are having their movement, they will not borrow a leader from Jadavpur University or from anywhere. They will not borrow a leader from any corporate sector. Rather, among these 10,000, what they will do, they will form a natural leadership. They will form a natural leadership, meaning some selected people among 10,000, some 5 people with comparatively greater level of intellect, they will naturally emerge. They will emerge and they will orient the culture of the rest of the mass, the consciousness level of the rest of the mass, the active agency of the rest of the mass. And by orienting them, they will bring a transformation of their condition at the cultural level, at the political level, and at the societal level. Rather, the organic intellectual could be concentrate on the role of the organic intellectual. So Gramsci does not believe that the organic intellectual must be an educated fellow or a revolutionary elite. So rather, the organic intellectual could also be a lay person. Look at this. This is the moment. If there are some 10,000 people in West Bengal fighting for the jute industry so that the jute mills be open, among the 10,000, some natural 5 leader, they are not educated probably. They may not be educated highly. They may not be greatly learned, but still among the 10,000, 5 people with comparatively greater intelligence, they will emerge. Okay, they are called organic intellectuals. And these organic intellectuals, they will orient the consciousness of the mass. By orienting the consciousness of the mass, they will bring a transformation. They will bring the transformation in the 3 fields, at the cultural level, at the political level, and at the social level. This is how they can unsettle the hegemony. So come to the next slide. None of this means that organic intellectuals sprout like plants from the material ground onto which they are born. They are contingently not bound to a class base, meaning natural leaders are not like that. It is not something that you are standing below some tree, and some natural seeds of the tree falls on the ground, and it naturally sprout. Okay, so you cannot say that in something in West Bengal there are some 10,000 jute workers. Okay, it may not be that some 10,000 jute workers, they are all natural intellectuals. Okay, uh, as it is the case in the case of a tree, that it may be that all seeds are thrown into the soil, but there are very few that sprout. In the case of the organic intellectual, this also happens the same. Okay, something in the probably in the TCS company, probably there work some 4,85,000 people. Okay, if there is some problem, if some 4,85,000 people they revolt against TCS company, okay, some 10 natural leader will emerge. It may not be that 4,85,000 all people will be leader. Okay, the mass cannot be considered as a leader. Some few people will emerge as a leader. This organic is not the natural. In fact, in order to realize themselves, organic intellectuals must venture into alien areas, including, if not especially, the realm of the universal reason represented by the state. So the natural organic intellectuals are not natural. The responsibility of the organic intellectual is less to insert legitimized knowledge. Okay, so what basically they do, the organic intellectual, they do not bring any newly knowledge. It is the basically the organic intellectual, they only orient the mind of the mass. They do not bring any foreign body of knowledge. What they do, rather, they only disclose the fact that current condition do not go without saying. So what happens there, the organic intellectuals, okay, they do not bring foreign knowledge, rather they only disclose the truth to the mass, that whatever is happening here should not be spent unreacted. Okay, some 10,000 jute workers in West Bengal, among them some 5 organic intellectual emerge. They orient the consciousness of the 10,000, and while doing this, they do not import any foreign knowledge. What they generally do, they rather make them conscious regarding the fact that the present condition of the jute industry in West Bengal should not be spared unreacted. Okay, so this is the story with them. And then the second thing, the class injustice that sustain the state are not present by nature, therefore they can be altered. Meaning, if the owners of the jute industry are not decided by nature, okay, then they can be altered. So what happens there, okay, when we talk about that hegemony can be unsettled, hegemony can be unsettled only when the working class, they have their revolutionary things in their blood. Okay, they need to have some revolutionary component in their blood. What is the revolutionary component in their blood? When they will think that nature and natural resources belong to me as much as it belongs to Ratan Tata or Mukesh Ambani. Meaning, the moment you think that the position that Ratan Tata is presently enjoying as a ruler or Mukesh Ambani as a ruler, it is not that nature has favored them. It is not the story them. If upon nature they have their claim, they have their rights, meaning we do have also the same rights upon nature. So if they are now the ruler, we are the working class. If they are the ruling class, we are the working class, then our condition can be changed. So organic intellectuals, what they do not bring foreign knowledge, rather they spread the consciousness, that present condition should not be lived unreacted. They rather believe in the thing that if nature belongs to Mukesh Ambani and Ratan Tata, nature similarly belongs to us. So situation can be changed. So this is how we can alter hegemony. So Gramsci's main idea of hegemony is that hegemony is simply a kind of a control by the powerful over the powerless. Okay, this is a kind of an exercise of power by the superior over the inferior. But the story is hegemony stable or unstable? The first answer is it is unstable. Is it changeable or unchangeable? The second answer is that it is changeable. Then how can we change it? Hegemony can be changed when we can bring a transformation. How can we bring a transformation? If the working class, they have revolutionary component in them. If the working class can come out of the mindset of determinism, we are basically workers because we are destined to be. When the workers can come out of that kind of determinism, okay, then revolutionary can be, then hegemony can be broken and be challenged. Okay, who can change the hegemony? Organic intellectuals, they can change the hegemony. Who are the organic intellectuals? Meaning, when there is some trade union, trade union organizing movement by some 5,000 people, okay, in an industry. Suppose in Hind Motor there is a movement, there is a trade union movement, some 5,000 people are having their movement. Okay, naturally two leaders, they emerge from the heart. Okay, these natural two leaders with their natural intelligence, they form the organic intellectual. These organic intellectual, they orient the consciousness of the rest of the heart. Okay, not only they orient their consciousness, but their culture and their culture, their consciousness and their desire as well. While doing this, what they do, not only they orient the basically consciousness of the mass, but also gradually they draw them towards a change, towards a transformation. Then the transformation occurs at social level, political level, and at cultural level. So this is how the organic intellectual, they orient, by orienting they bring transformation, they by bringing transformation at the social and cultural and political level, they can unsettle the hegemony.